just need someone to move to adopt the agenda.
So moved.
We have a second. Leslie's the second. Okay.
And just
And
to check,
then
are we recording this meeting? Just to verify.
yes, it's recording. I see that. And I also see that it's being streamed
Good.
live right now.
Yes.
as well.
On both
And
channels.
Karen, just as a recall, I have a commitment at 9, and so I'm going to need to make sure that I'm off of here by about 8:45.
Okay, we will.
Karen,
do
I see that Lori is actually signed in to the attendees.
Yep, I'm bringing her in now. Looks like she
Okay,
got
thank
into the attendees there.
Okay. Thank you, Leslie.
So
Can you hear us, Lori? Still on mute.
I'm still trying to figure out all the documents because I just got home. So I'm still trying to figure out the documents that we got sent this afternoon.
Yeah, we've been working on them. They're hot off the presses up to the last minute. So we'll just, as we talk through these things, we'll kind of go through them then. I think we're all kind of in the same boat there, and Joe's lucky he can't even open them. So he's just going to be surprised at what we talk about. So,
Well, I can't open up some of them either. So
okay.
that's what I was just trying to work on, was to try and figure out how to get them.
It's classified, Penny. You don't have clearance.
Apparently not, which
I do. I can
Okay.
see them, so I have clearance.
Okay.
Joe, do you have clearance?
Sorry, can I just interject here very quickly? After tonight, could we please get the binders back to Oryx just for you can keep all of the contents and the dividers, but just the physical binders.
Yep.
Yeah.
Just get them back sometime in the next few weeks. That would be great for
Can you
reuse.
use them?
Yeah, because the binders cost money. So
Oh, I
Yeah.
thought you were gonna keep it as a souvenir, Jamie.
Cost savings right here. If you turn them in, then they'll recycle them to use for the board.
Correct.
So,
yes.
all right.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jamie. I guess before we move on, first of all, I want to thank Jamie for, this is her last finance committee meeting with us. And I just wanted to thank her for all her help keeping us, on schedule, on task and all that stuff. So thanks, Jamie. Appreciate it and wish you the best. Also, I got to thank Joel too while I'm at it, because just doing the budget alone is enough work right now. And he's also working on getting the 2020 reserve study ready to go. And I've asked him for a whole bunch of extra information to get us ready to talk about this resolution. And so thanks, Joel, for being patient and for doing what we asked of you. So thanks. Okay, with that, thanks, Joe. With that, we'll go through the minutes. Do we have to approve all these separately, or can we do them all at once? How does it
You
work?
can do it all at once.
All at once,
Unless you have
okay.
changes.
Unless we have changes. Okay, so are there any comments or changes on any of the minutes that you were sent?
I move approval of the 3 sets of minutes attached to the June 17th agenda.
Second.
Any discussion or comments, or can we approve by acclamation? Okay, no discussion, so I'll just say it's approved. Okay, next up are the April 2020 financial statements. And I was kind of hoping that everyone had a chance to look through these and we could make this discussion kind of brief. April was a real weird month in that our revenue was significantly different and a lot of things were closed down. The April financials obviously do impact our ongoing discussions tonight. And so I kind of just wanted to give everyone a chance to answer their questions and then kind of move on, if that's okay with you. So are there any questions about April 2020, or Joel, anything in particular that you felt that you needed to draw our attention to?
obviously with these statements, it's not, usually I'll do like a side-by-side comparison with the year, prior year. Now, of course, obviously we're not comparing apples to apples anymore since we have that entire month of dues gone, plus operations literally shut down in a sense from a revenue standpoint. So that's why you'll see like just one number I'll point out. So you'll see like in April 30, 2019, the net income for operations was $274,016. And then now it's obviously at the end of April 30, 2020, negative $52,725. And that is just a realization of foregoing dues and having everything shut down due to the pandemic. And then if you flip to golf, you'll see the biggest difference with golf. I'll just talk about that one real fast.
What page are you looking at right now, Joel?
So I'm looking at, good question for you guys. So that would be
16.
language here. Yeah, page 15. So for the current, for golf, back in April 2019 month to date, it was just for the month in April 2019, it was 54,863 in revenue versus for April 2020, it is 5,472. It's all shutdown related. The net income for golf back in April 2019 was still negative 19,486 versus in April of 2020 for the month, it's negative 57,291. And that's just a function of no revenue coming in for the most part for golf. Then if we look at golf year to date real quickly, which will be page 16 for you guys. Then you can see year to date in April of, April 2019, it was revenue 300,575 versus for golf, April of 2020 year to date, approximately 245,000, which last year at this time, golf had a net income year to date of 64,308 versus this year at the end of April, 28,271. And, of course, I've talked about the expense ratio before, even though they're not really all that comparable at this point, but last year in April 2019, year to date, it was about 77.87% expenses to revenues versus this year, it's expenses to revenues 105% year to date. And that's obviously, it just becomes a function of the reduction in dues revenues and operational type other incomes such as golf. And those are I would say, just the most important highlights. Capital, it's not like we've been going crazy spending on capital. So capital is still relatively, there's nothing really huge going on the cash page at this point, which is page page 15 for you guys. But those are really the big highlights, you could say, of April. But now we're starting, I'll talk about collections. Also, let me talk about that too real quick. So collections. So April 2019 year-to-date collections, that ratio was 95.8%. And then April 2020, that ratio is 95%. Of course, obviously, not taking in dues doesn't really move that ratio as much. Now I can tell you, I've already done the calculation for May. So at the end of May 2019, that collections ratio is 93.7%, which isn't too bad given the fact of what's going on with this pandemic situation, the shutdown. But those are the big highlights, I would say.
Okay. Are there any questions on that, on April?
I have a question.
Thank you.
As far as golf income for April, I know that golf opened up late March. Is that correct?
I think golf opened up early May, Joe, right? Like the first week of May?
Yeah, golf
Oh,
golf
okay.
got shut down. Golf got shut down March 25th, I think, and then reopened May 5th or 6th, whatever that weekend was.
So what was the golf income for April then, if they were shut
It
down?
probably was some sales of memberships.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. I don't know completely, but that's probably a good guess without looking at the GL.
And then the other income, what is that? The 15,413?
What page are you
I'm
looking
on
at?
page 14 on the income statement summary.
Oh, yeah. Actually, I'm glad you pointed that out. So this 15,413, this other income amount, so this is now including the $10,000 of that EIDL, that money that we got in. So that is, EIDL is booked in there. You'll see it on common costs. If you look at the common costs, departmental income statement, that's booked in there as EIDL grant incomes. So that, which with the summary code, it falls into the other income line item on this income statement. So that's what is making up the lion's share of that. So thanks for pointing that out.
Okay. And then in regards to the Area Z rental income, is there a due date and when all that's supposed to be, all the renewals supposed to be in, or is that it?
Are you still looking at, what do you?
I'm looking at 14, this is Area Z rental income. I'm assuming that's the RVs, or am I not correct in that assumption?
Area Z is the RV center.
Right, because the marina income looks like it's all in.
No,
basically. No,
marina income isn't all in yet because the
Oh.
bad debt that's kind of offsetting it.
but the Area Z income, did they not have a due date as well? Because that should be all in by May something, right?
Well, let me find it actually on the departmental statement.
Or do we extend it to, June?
That one, I'll have to just pull up that GL.
Okay,
And while I'm pulling up that, if you have another question.
Do they pay for that monthly or do they pay annually for the storage in Area Z?
right, I just didn't know when that ended, or if we collect everything that we're supposed to collect it.
Like, I'll be able to tell as soon as I,
I think it's annual and quarterly that they assess that.
Okay. Expect this to increase during the year. If it's paid quarterly, then it'll continue to increase.
and I can tell just by looking at the bad debt expense, this is, so the bad debt expense is 4,585. So this is the same sort of situation as the marina. So like anything that we bill out, the moment it becomes 30 days past due, then I will naturally just write it off. And then as soon as they pay it, then that write-off gets reversed, so to speak. So it's bumping back up the revenues, which is exactly what's going on with the marina right now as well.
Yeah, I'm just wondering, because doing the forecast or the budget for next year, I just wanted to see how that impacted those two incomes, because that's the only one I could think of that.
Well, right now I can tell you, like with the forecast, that is conservatively impacting it negatively, meaning like it's just assuming like it's gone, but actually that will come back in as soon as people pay this.
Okay.
But we don't have a time limit on Area Z like we do on the marina, right?
Like any time that we bill anyone for anything, like dues or marina or whatever, like as soon as that bill becomes over 30 days, then I will naturally in the calculations write it off. Yeah.
Yeah, I got that. I just didn't think that the Area Z was managed in the same way for sending out invoices and the year to year like we do with the marina. But I'm not sure, but I thought that was different.
Right, like is the marina kind of like a rolling calendar Area Z, whereas the marina is most definitely, this is your season. It's May to May or whatever it is. You know, Joe?
Yeah, Or did you say Joe?
I said Joe, but you can answer.
No, Joe can answer it.
I believe the marina is, everything is billed in March and then it comes in after that.
Right.
So you basically get it for the year. You get a little carryover for the marina and it gets billed in March, and then you have 30 days to pay it in April. Because generally speaking, in a normal year, you're dropping boats in about the 15th of May.
And I can tell you this, like, I know we billed 11,265 for Area Z. And so far I have been bad debts, 5,338. So roughly half of that.
So I
And as
guess
people
Penny-
pay that, that'll reverse off.
I think Penny was just asking the same question I was asking, is that Area Z looks like it's not billed the same way as the marina, where we can tell if, you know, it's just monthly as far as the rental income,
Quarterly.
quarterly. And the marina is annually.
That's right, yeah. It's
Okay,
built in.
that's what I think I wanted to know too.
So Trang, I was just looking at this from the budget. So in 2019, we earned 19,970 for Area Z. 2020, the budget was 20,009. 2021, the budget is 20,009. So it seems like we're, you know, we haven't really increased much from 2019 even as
No,
far as.
I saw that. I just was wondering if how this year was being affected by the income part. That's all.
Okay. Good questions. Any others on that? Or should we move to the capital reporting portion? Okay. So we go ahead and move on to the capital report. So this is for 2020, looking at the open projects in 2020. And I suspect that Trang and Lori, you guys probably have not seen this report before. So basically it just lists out all of our open projects that have been approved, even if they were approved prior. So you'll see some of the, the loan, the things that were covered by a loan that's still open because we still have a loan out. Actually, this even has closed projects on it. So you can see how much the board approved, how much was invoiced, and obligated funds. And this is what Joel uses, what was approved, the approved amount, to kind of project our cash balance on the, what is that, the reserves reporting page, or whatever that thing is called.
Yeah, basically like the 2020 starting amount, you know, takes this into account what it was at the end of 2019.
So what are the new ones for 2020? It's just the quiet pool pump house equipment, security cameras, the trim mower utility vehicles, and the marina dock replacement. That's all the board has approved this year.
And CVC on roads for 20.
Right. Oh, and Lori has a question. Hey, Lori. We can't hear you right now. Maybe adjust your volume. Oh, still can't hear you.
Lori, take a look and see if down in your system tray down the lower right, take a look and see if you've got a different microphone selected perhaps right now. Or if you try down the lower left of Zoom.
Well, I unmuted. Can you
There
hear
you are.
me?
There you are.
Okay. Okay.
Yes.
So what I said like 3 times is I got 3 emails since 4 o'clock with 7 different pages, or not pages, but 7 different like PDFs, Word documents, Excel. You guys can slow down. I have no idea where we're at, and I'm trying to follow, and I'm lost.
Okay. I'm going to show it to you. So right now we are in the packet itself. So the board agenda, the finance committee packet itself. And we're on page 19. And it looks like that. You see that? Did you find it, Lori? Oh. Still can't hear you. Sorry. Okay.
Oh, there you are.
Oh, not anymore.
If you want to type it in a chat too, I'll check it. So if we have a question, we need to answer. Oh, I'm losing it too. Okay.
I think she's going to try reconnecting.
Okay. All right. Hopefully she gets back quickly. Okay. Any other questions, comments about this page
So
or the
Karen,
roads? We can look at them both together. So what's new for 2020 roads? It's CVC. That's the only one.
Yeah, that's it. Only CVC.
Okay.
so Karen,
Yes.
all the ones that are listed on page 19 and 20 that has opened, that's for 2019, correct? You said?
So you can see the approval date over there in the second column.
Mhm.
And so if they're open, it just means that we haven't received all of the invoices yet. Some of it might be because it's a capital lease. Trying to see. So that the golf cart life extension, I think that's an ongoing thing, right? Joel,
Yeah.
like we extended it.
Yeah, basically these, like, cause I'll ask these project managers, are you done with these things? And then they'll tell me, well, no, I still have some things that I'm expecting to do or other charges that'll hit. So then they stay open.
Okay.
And I have noticed being on this committee that sometimes there will be invoices coming from contractors like 2 or 3 or sometimes even longer after. And so we'll typically keep the project open for a little while, even after the work is done, to make sure that all the invoices come in and can get charged against it. So
Yeah.
I think the oldest one is 2018 and some are 2019 and some are 2020.
Can I ask Joel or Joe, what is the project manager? I'm not familiar with that one.
Well, basically, like, the project manager would be when people take these surf requests and stuff, to the board, they're usually the ones to present it.
So you're
And,
hiring a new project
No.
manager?
No, project Trang, we have a project manager that we've employed under contract to assist us with all of the project management that we've done, the sprung structure of the road, the marina, things of that. Then what they will do is when I need let's use Windward, the wall on Windward. So I'll go to the project manager and say, go ahead and find me an engineer, put it out to bid, and they do all the construction documents for us, and then they do all of the bidding, and then recommend a contractor for us to use. So they put all the bid packages and assist us with that. And then when the project is going there, the oversight for the project.
Okay, thank you.
They basically, what they did, Trang, is they replaced Wilson Engineering.
And I think the line item you're seeing in here, if you're looking at those, like under Marina Sandpipe and all those, that project manager, that was all specifically related to those projects that were all packaged together and funded through the SURF loan. Is that correct?
Yeah,
So-
that's right.
Hi, Lori.
You're back. Did you have questions that you wanted us to ask or go back through stuff again? You're all right? Okay. Okay. So that covers the financial statements for April. So next I want to move on to continuing business in the agenda. And this is the 2021 budget recommendations. So first, I want to start discussing just the 2021 budget itself. I know we're going to get into the conversation about that dues projection sheet, but I want to start by focusing on just 2021 itself and get comments or questions or whatever about that. And Joel, you did send out some slightly modified budget sheets this afternoon, correct? I think that was the last email.
Oh, yes, for the 2021 budget.
Yeah. And why don't you just go ahead and talk about those changes? It didn't change the totals at all, but it was just some moving around. So maybe you just talk through that a little bit and people can ask questions if they have them.
So which attachment are we opening up and what page are we going to?
It's going to be the last email that I sent you.
Yep.
Or the most recent one. And then it'll be the the first one, updated 2021 budget summary report.
Good. Everybody have that? All right.
We're talking about
Just tell us what page and we'll just follow through. You can also share the screen, obviously, but we'll track along.
So the only change, it's a fairly small one, but I talked about it last time. If you go to page 26, I'll go to page 26. Okay, under the admin budget. So I'm looking at GL number 5300 and GL number 5335. So for the 2021 budget, at the last week during the committee meeting, I said there is I was going to correct a calculation for the salary amount which would obviously affect the payroll tax amount too. So approximately, from memory, like 6,400 or something got reduced from this amount. And then also, I pointed out last time that I noticed in 2020 when they put the budget information in, the payroll taxes 5335 GL and the 5385 GL were basically flipped around. So then I flipped those back around and put them in the correct buckets so it's more comparable on the budget percentage change. And so basically, I took, actually, let me go to the email. So the exact dollar amount I took was $6,448, was as a combination reduced from salaries and payroll taxes. So that's $6,448. So then where I put that is, so last time, I know you guys were talking about ACC security, the hazardous tree removal, which is on page 32, GL 6165. And since there is a little kind of concern, maybe that line item wasn't high enough, I plugged 5,000 of that to restore that back to the 2020 budget of $60,000 for that line item. So that's where 5,000 of it went. And then the $1,448, that difference went onto page 20 under maintenance, other supplies, GL 6795. I'm going to go to this. Now, the reason why I did that was in so if you look at the 2020 budget, you'll see that line item right below that odd GL number B 6795.01 for budget supplies maintenance 1 FTE. That's when they built into the budget in 2020 that additional position and added supplies. So since it didn't work out to being a whole 1 FTE in maintenance because some of that is working on CBC and roads. So I bumped up the other supplies by the extra 1,448 to kind of make up for this other portion of an FTE that could draw more supplies. But other than that, those are the only changes. So the total bottom line of the budget is, the bottom line is exactly the same as what you saw or that you've always seen.
So Joel, can I ask a question? So going back to admin on page 28, so I see now that salaries are increasing 4.46% and payroll taxes 14.2%, and then payroll benefits is 43.68. And is that big jump because it was switched around last year, or? Help me understand that.
Okay, so I just found the page. So can you restate that again?
I
Okay,
can
so I'm
explain.
Okay,
Last year you did not have Lisa on benefits. This year you do.
okay,
Oh, yeah, for the benefits, yes.
okay. Okay, thanks. Anything else? So any other questions, I guess, about the details of the 2021 budget itself? So the goal for tonight would be to make our recommendation to the board for the budget that they will then review and approve. So if we have changes that we want to make to it, or if we want to recommend it as is, then that will be it. But I do want to, before we do that, look at this dues projection worksheet. But I wanted to, before we got kind of talking about all of that, just spend some time actually talking about the details of the 2021 budget itself, the details. So if there's no more discussion about that, I'll go ahead and we'll talk about this dues projection worksheet. We have two different ones, correct? So I'll give you a little of my
So
thinking.
Tell us where you are. What?
Okay,
page
so
you're on.
I'm looking at, ooh, this was in an email that was sent out. So let me.
Is this the updated one?
Is this
Yeah.
the document we're
Yes, that's the one. So there's an
Okay.
updated dues projection PDF. And then
The third attachment and the email that we got from Joel at 4:28.
that's the one.
All right.
So I can tell you the only thing that's changed on this.
Okay.
So the only thing that's changed on this, remember how Tony pointed out under the SURF additional assessments that he thought that it was like $60 or something like that before that, where he thought that was too high. Basically, because that now in total, like, so the amount itself, if you took the 3610 plus the 2807 plus in the shaded region, that the SURF $368.64. If you added that up, that total is going to be the same total that you saw last week. It's just the allocation between the additional assessment and the SURF additional special assessment down below in the shaded region. So I just corrected calculation for that allocation between those two regions, but in total, it's the same amount.
Okay, so when we discussed this last time, there were some questions about taking, or some conversation about taking out the replacement costs and putting back in the repair costs. So Joel, did you send that out to everyone?
Yeah, so that was in the first email that you got from me today at, I'll tell you, it was at 3:27.
So it looks exactly the same. This is what's tough about Zoom, because sometimes we'd bring these to the meeting last minute and hand them out, and now we're kind of talking through it. So
Yeah.
It was an Excel, correct?
Yeah, they were both in Excel.
Okay.
So Tony, last time, he was, what he was wanting to see was in 2029, is, you know, how we kicked the barn and the maintenance building to 2029, the rebuild portion of it, or the rebuild. And then Tony was wanting to see how would it look if we removed the barn, meaning the rebuild in 2029, and then instead plugged back in the component units for those barns, like the, you know, the outside envelope and the electrical, plumbing, all that sort of stuff that you would have done if you didn't do the rebuild. So that change was made, and then the maintenance building was removed. We were actually, Tony actually came into my office, so we looked over these reserve studies together. So we were actually going to do the same thing for the maintenance building. We were going to remove the maintenance building, rebuild, which is that other big line item, kick to 2029, and then plug back in component units for the maintenance building. But then looking at this, at the reserve study for 2019, the component units are actually already there. So it's already a part of that reserve study. So all we had to do for that one is just remove the building to see how it would look in a sense. So then so basically, so in a nutshell, in 2029, the surf building, Barn 8 has been removed, maintenance building, Area Z, rebuild, removed, and the component units are there, you know, like you would make repairs to those buildings in prior years. And then if you scrolled up and you want to know, well, what column or what rows did I change? They're all highlighted in orange, like pumpkin orange, literally. And then, so then that second spreadsheet, that modified dues projection summary spreadsheet, what that's doing is that's showing you, well, this is what it would look like if we did something like that.
So we basically have two options to look at here. We have the one that we discussed last week, which is all of the big projects, and they're out in 2029, you know, under the main line as a special assessment. And those kind of show like 2022 dues, it's projecting 153. Of course, this is based on these assumptions only, not necessarily what will occur. You know, 153, then it goes to 129. And then we have this modification, which takes into account the discussion that we had last time, which is let's take out those big buildings, those replacements. Let's put the repair costs back in and see what it looks. And like, so the original that we looked at last time was based on the 2019 reserve study as it is, as it stands now. I think there might've been a few things moving years, but it wasn't any material changes of adding anything or taking anything out. If we look at this modified version, we are suggesting changes to the 2020 reserve study and saying we want to base our budget projection on these recommended changes. So if we adopt this view, then this would serve as our, you know, we've talked about it before, but our official recommendation that this is how the 2020 reserve study should be reflected, which is taking out those big replacement for the barn and for the maintenance building and putting back in the repair costs. The one thing I would say with that is, though, if before the 2020 reserve study is finalized, if we have updated numbers from Joe, I would hope that we and the board would adopt the more recent estimates rather than older numbers.
Well, as soon as I get those, I will get those to the board and long range and everybody involved in finance. So I just don't have them back yet.
Yeah, understood. And this was just kind of a ongoing discussion that we've had, but I guess the question that I want to ask is, which one do we want to go with? Do we want to go with 2019 as it is in the reserve study, or this modified version as we discussed before? And then do you have any questions about this version? So I know we were getting a lot of things late, so I'm happy to kind of entertain a lot of questions.
Basically, the board members have not made a decision yet to go ahead and replace either Barn 8 or the maintenance building. And until that decision is made, I don't think that we can plan for the expenses. I'd like to go with the one that puts back just the maintenance costs for those buildings. And again, I would like to see more accurate replacement values than what we have right now. And Joe's getting those for us.
Joe, are you getting those for the maintenance building and Barn 8 or just Barn 8?
Just Barn 8. I got to get Tyler to get updated stuff for the maintenance center. But right now it's Barn 8. But I will get all that so that I could get that to you guys.
Hey, Tony, could you tilt your camera down a little bit? So there, now we can see you.
I try to hide.
Thanks. I'm a little confused. So hopefully somebody can help me out here. I'm trying to understand the distinction that we're making here. Because I don't see that much difference. So what am I missing between the previous spreadsheet and this one?
Okay, so in the modified one, for instance, it's showing a projection in 2022 of $166 because we have added, so in the original one that we discussed last time, the additional assessment under SURF was
Got it.
$1.28. We're saying, okay, well, if we put back in those replacement costs, it would be $13.97 additional assessment beyond the $36.10 that we're contributing now. So that's one big change. I'm trying to see 168, 145. And then 2027 changes a little bit too. I can't remember what specific repair was in 2027. I don't know if that was HVAC or anyway, so it adds a little in 2027. So what we did is we took, I mean, Tony and Joel can talk about this more, but
Yeah, it actually, so it adds the HVAC and the restrooms, locker rooms remodel component unit back in, which
So-
is 249,000.
and then it changes 2029 and particularly the special assessment because we've taken the maintenance building replacement and the barn replacement completely out. So the special assessment for the remaining projects, which again have not been decided, but the clubhouse refurbishment, marina parking lot design, and marina parking lot construction comes to is that 217? But again, they're in the reserve study now. We have not decided whether or not we will do them, but they're in there. But these are not critical like the barn and the maintenance building are, where we need to do something one way or another quickly. These, as I understand it, tell me if I'm saying it wrong, Joe, but they're not quite so urgent.
Well, the thing that would be more urgent would be definitely work on the maintenance center and barn 8, your windows, siding, roofs, things of that nature. The clubhouse, don't really see it being a major factor right at the moment. The marina, I still can't see it going under macadam or hot stuff. So, I mean, I think, yeah, there will be a huge issue there to try to get something done there, being in the watershed. If you're going to put it under a hard surface. So I don't think those last two, the clubhouse and the parking lot, are as urgent or in as much of a priority at this point in time as trying to figure out repairing or replace both the barn 8 and the maintenance center. But again, replace would be that would be put out to a full vote from finance board, long range planning to the whole community. So same way with the maintenance center. But those two, the maintenance center and barn 8, are more of a current issue that we have to get updated and fixed.
So sorry, I'm talking a lot. One of the concerns before on the previous version was that we had pushed out to 2029 these things that we thought needed to be addressed much sooner than that. So do you think 2029 is reasonable for the projects that are remaining there on this modified version?
Well, we put them out to 2029 just for planning purposes. So again, because we still don't have a clear direction of what the community wants or what the needs are. So we had to keep it on there so we could at least see what the potential costs and obligations to the residents would be. Right now, it's in planning, so we still have to upkeep. We have to take care of the buildings and the structures we have. So that's why we're going back to putting component parts in right now and get things moving on that as far as a reserve study, and then make some real hard decisions and hopefully correct ones for the long term of those two buildings and what we're going to do. Again, but that's got to come from finance board, long range, a ton of community input. So we put them out there just for planning purposes.
I agree with Joe. I don't think these items should be on this sheet. Nobody has approved or recommended that these are going to be done at any time during the next 9 years. And since nobody has made those recommendations, I don't see why we have to go in. if we put those on there, then finance is arbitrarily saying this is what we think is going to happen with these buildings. So I would recommend taking those off and having finance, long range, and whatever make a decision sometime in the next 1 or 2 years where if they're going to do anything about it. But right now, nobody has made that decision.
But
Sounds
I
like,
still have to upkeep my buildings though.
Yeah.
we just have to present this to the board, and it has to be very clear what's included in the reserve study and what is not, and what our assumptions are. And then the board says, that's exactly the way we're thinking, and we move forward, right? I mean, it doesn't seem to be any disagreement
Yep.
here on the finance committee.
So along with this modified version was sent an updated, sorry, you guys, the SURF plan where Joel, he said, he highlighted specifically the changes that were made that fed into this modified version. So it was, again, it was taking out the replacement of barn 8 and putting back in. So if you open up that spreadsheet, which you don't necessarily have to do now, but you can see exactly what those changes are, and we could present it to the board in this way too, where we're showing exactly what changes we are recommending to be made, both to go into this projection assumptions sheet and then into the 2020 reserve study.
So you're talking about the email from 3/27. That's what we're working off of, right?
Yeah.
We're all on the same page. Okay. Got it.
Now for like, for example, the barn 8 building rebuild and the maintenance building. So basically what I did to, the neat thing about the spreadsheet is just to change it is under column G under the year. All I have to simply do is just change the year, and the formulas will pull this up around. So for the maintenance building and for the barn, I just typed in 2049 just to simply move it, out of view of this out of this 10-year spreadsheet. That isn't the year that I'm saying that, or that you're saying that's what it's going to be. That was just for convenience, just to kick it out of view, so to speak, so it doesn't get into our calculations. Now, the other component units, like when Tony and I looked at like the 2018 reserve study, especially like for barn 8, if something said year 2018, then I just naturally gave the year of 2022. So if the component unit had a year 2022 or later, it either got 2022 or the year that it said in 20. So like, for example, in the 2018 reserve study, like the painting in 2025, since it said 2025, and I just changed the year to 2025 for the painting on there.
We don't need to get into the details of that. We can look at that on our own, I think, and just trust that you've prepared it correctly, right?
Yeah.
So, I mean, I'm impressed with your work. Don't take offense, but.
Oh no, yeah, I just didn't want you to see like the barn 8 building rebuild or the maintenance building rebuild and see 2049 and think, where the heck did that come from? Like on a reserve study.
Yeah, so let's just focus on the summary. So the obvious thing to me is, so 2022 to 2024, we've got additional assessments based on this information. And then we've got negatives for the next 3 years. And if you add up the additional assessment row for all those years, it's basically a little bit negative. So it looks like, a $22 increase coming up, and then it goes back down. And so if we present it like this because we're required to, I just want to make sure we present next to it what the dues will likely look like in reality. And I'm wondering if this did play out, could we borrow the money for the next 3 years and then essentially pay it back in the 3 years after that? Are you, Joe?
Technically you could, but we'd have to go through the whole process of getting a loan and doing it that way, which again would have to come from the board, because that would have the final approval for a loan. Finance committee does not have that approval.
Well, I know I have no authority. I've said that multiple times. I have no authority. We make recommendations to the board. So I'm wondering.
I think my thought would be I would try to flatten those out a little bit more, not look at it where I wouldn't raise dues, keep dues flat for those 2-3 years after that. You follow me?
Well, you'd have to raise them a lot in 2022, 2023, and 2024, and then apparently you would get it all back in the next 3 years. So,
Well, the years where you have your negative, see, I haven't seen this sheet because I couldn't get it open.
Yeah.
But the thought that I would have with that is the years that you're negative, you wouldn't go, you would just keep the dues flat for those years.
I know, but where do you come up with the money that you need for 20? Because you're not looking at it, so it's not really fair fight. But it says we need $14 a month, $17 a month, and then $8 a month to get to the first year where we have a negative. So we've got to have. That's where I was hoping, of course, the board could maybe borrow the money, especially if interest rates continue to be where they are, and then.
That's always an option.
Yeah.
I mean, that's always an option we can present to them.
Yeah, I'd like to have a plan that shows like, okay, this is according to the information we have. This is the plan that we are recommending to the board for how we would fund this over that 6 years in reality, in dues in reality. So we can't figure it out tonight. It's just, that's an idea.
My concern on something like that is whatever this board decides to do is subject to change by any future board. So I think that we need to only do things that we think can be carried forward.
Well, I thought our job was to put out give people an idea of what we think it would look like, what we would recommend it would look like, and then the board to do whatever they want to do,
Yeah, suggestions are good. Proposals are good.
So this schedule came about based on the RCW, which has some specific language. Let me see if I can pull that up. I think I sent this out to everyone as well in the flurry of emails. There's nothing against showing it how we think that it might happen, but let me see if I can get the wording. Shoot, that's not it. Okay, hold on, bear with me. Anyway, number one, I think we need to provide a real clear context. When this was first kind of sent out, I think it was sent out without a lot of context. So real clear context of what it is, what it isn't, what the data behind this is. I think that's necessary no matter what we do. But as far as looking to kind of smooth out here, I'll just tell you, here's where I have a little bit of, I can't find it right now, sorry. I just have a little bit of concern about, I guess if we showed it separately and we're just like, here's how we think that would look, but like Leslie said, any future board could change it. I don't want to go in and just be moving projects around to do it. But if we, maybe show what a more smoothed out version would look like. And there's a few things available to us besides just taking out a loan. So I was looking at the detail and there's a lot of, large capital equipment things, which we often, or maybe not often, but we have used capital leases to cover that. So that kind of can spread out the things. And then sometimes the equipment itself, we can move it around. So I guess that's the next question is, how do we want to present a more realistic view? Do we have kind of an explanation of what this is? And then here's our thought of how that would look. Just taking these numbers and kind of smoothing them out mathematically, I guess, not necessarily changing. I don't want to change the data behind it. Not sure if I'm making sense there. So
I don't know how you smooth it out. The data is data, and I don't know how we can smooth it out without making assumptions like if you're putting new building, we end up making the assumption it's not going to be 2029, it's going to be 2025. The facts are, these are the facts. And how do you change those facts? The only thing I can see happening is when Joe gets those numbers, I think if realistically, they're going to be significantly more expensive than what they have on the reserve study currently. But I don't know how to smooth those things out unless you really have an explanation. Either way, there's going to be a hard explanation to make when you see the dues act increases in 2022, 2023, and all of a sudden you see decreases. How do you reconcile that to the community when they see this, saying we're going to have significant increases in the next two or 3 years? What are you going to do as the board or the finance committee when those dues increases all of a sudden go below and members are expecting to get reduced their dues? Whereas in my view is we want to flat these things out and not go back and reduce dues one year, then increase them the next year, reduce them the next, increase them the next year.
So,
Yeah.
so there's a distinction here, right, between this, I think, what this shows is baseline funding, right? As opposed to full funding.
Well, basically what this is this is treating it as though, like, in any one of those years, if you want to pay for it all in cash through your dues, this is what it would look like. That's what.
Right, and that's the definition of baseline funding, right?
I'd have to go back to look, I looked those up actually a couple of months ago between baseline and fully funded. I was almost wanting to say it was almost akin to a fully funded method, but you could be right on the baseline funding.
It is baseline. Baseline, you pay for everything in that year.
Right, and fully funding means that you're planning for the future and your
reserve study would be 100% funded for all projects.
Right.
That's fully funded.
Right. So I think back to your point, Karen, that I think, help me with this, Tony and Joel and Joe, the reserve study gives us baseline and full funding. Is that correct?
It does. Yeah.
Okay.
It has them both.
And that's what the RCW refers to as well, right? Is that, aren't we supposed to show both?
We do show both in our ballot. We show one table that is baseline funded and one that is fully funded. And then there's a separate requirement that I wish I could find the exact data, but there's a separate requirement that we show the surplus or deficiency in required funding from the reserve study, and doesn't necessarily define it as baseline or fully, but we have used it previously as baseline plus our 600 required carryover, I believe.
I think one of the other things that we need to be able to explain to people is why these numbers are changing. If you look at ops, you're kind of projecting a 3% cost of living every year. That's where those numbers are going up. If you come down to SURF, you'll see that the SURF assessment is exactly the same for the next 10 years. It's $36.10. But what is changing is this, what's called additional assessment. Now, what is that number? $1.28 for 2022, $16.85 for what is included in that number? Why should we be increasing this amount? And again, you go the same thing for roads. The roads number is exactly the same for 10 years, $37.13. But you're going to be increasing an additional assessment in 2022, but decreasing it the next year. Why? What's going on? Be able to explain why things are happening. This, I think, is what's concerning people so much. It's because they don't understand what is going on.
So Actually, I appreciate that comment a lot, Leslie. And I guess my question is, do we want to put our energy into showing how we think how we would recommend actually assessing the dues, or, not moving things around, because we don't want to do that? Or do we want to focus our energy on trying to better explain what this is? Or do we want to do both? My concern in showing anything different than what is just calculated off of the reserve study as it is, or as we are specifically recommending, is that we're just adding, kind of like Tony said, assumptions on top of assumptions. Not that they aren't realistic and reasonable and all of those things, but it's our assumptions on top of something that's already has a lot of assumptions in it. And then trying to get back to that and explain, to me, just gets a little bit tricky.
What are the assumptions on top of the assumptions? Because we're presenting the data from the reserve study as best as we can, as most accurate as we think it is, right? So there's
Right, just the assumptions of how it's presented as is, which is that we pay for everything that's in there in the year that it shows up. So that is exactly how it comes out from the reserve study itself, but the assumption is that we would do it that way. And then if we were to then take it and show it in a more smoothed out fashion, we're putting our assumptions on top of that of how it would look better, or how it would be more reasonable. And
well, I guess I'm not, this data is what we know from the reserve study. And so then we're not smoothing, I mean, we're then presenting more data, what I'm hoping that would be more accurate. It's not it's just saying, look, we don't envision having $14 increases and the $16 increase followed by a $17 decrease. And so my hope was that we could present, here's the required data, and make sure that it's clear that this is baseline funding. Because people are going to get the impression that this means, look, we've got $24 extra in SURF per month, look at all that extra money. But that's just to have the required minimum. No one expects to be 100% fully funded. I think that's pie in the sky. Maybe I'm wrong. Joe would know better, but
I don't, Colin, I'll answer that. I don't think 100% funding is any way to go, because all it does is tie your money up.
Yeah, I don't want that either. But
yeah,
seems like we should have what should we shoot for? Should we be 10%, 20%? I don't know. What do you think we should shoot for? I mean,
I've 50%, anywhere between 40 and 50%. But again, they're just targets. I mean, if you want a baseline fund, there's a lot of communities and places who do flat baseline funding. So I guess the concept has got to be what does the community feel comfortable with? And once you make that determination, then you build your stuff from there. So let's say you want to be a 40% funded under reserves. Well, then you start calculating everything and what your dues would be. And so much every year would go to that, and so much would go to your projects. And over a course of time, you'd get to 40%. Or if you just want to baseline it. Again, they're not wrong on either side.
Yeah, I'm not saying we have to get to, I don't even know what the answer was. So you're saying a standard would be close to 50%. I'm not saying, I don't think it's realistic for us to even think about dreaming about 50%, but when we put information out, ideally, I don't expect people to understand and want to take the time to understand this detail. I mean, of course they don't, but the clearer we can be, the better. And I don't want to give someone the impression that, look, for a flat level of dues over the next 6 years, we have enough money to cover all our SURF needs, and we're not building any kind of a cushion. So we've got this combination of, we have what's required by the state, and we have to do that, and we want to do that, but then we also want to put forth information that's actually helpful for people that want to dig into it a little bit and understand it.
I agree. We want to build a cushion. I absolutely agree with that. The one thing that's a little hard with this particular scenario that we're looking at right now is that it's front loaded. So in order to smooth it out, we have to push something off or get a loan or something like that. And I guess those are some of the assumptions I'm talking about that I'm not quite sure how we could I mean, sure, we could present it and we think, you know, we think that the board deciding on 2022's budget and forward needs to really look at this and decide how we can best spread these out. And maybe we could show
Well, no, I mean, we make recommendations. My recommendation would be that the board gets a loan to cover the capital costs from 2022 to 2024 and have a 6-year plan or a 9-year plan that would show, you know, how much we would borrow, how we'd pay it off. We'd make assumptions based on interest rates and forego a dues increase on additional assessments. So, I mean, that would be my recommendation. I mean, that's what we do. We make recommendations to the board. If someone's got a better one, I mean, I'm not saying there isn't one, but I'm all for it. So, but that's the best explanation I can see.
What I would also like to know is if you want to keep next year's dues or the year after also at 144 level, what is the dollar amount that you're going to be borrowing? How much of a loan is that?
Well, I think the concern that I have, and I kind of agree with everything that everyone's saying, which is like, okay, yeah, no, we should keep it just the way it is because that's what the data says. And then no, we should, and not no, and we should try and smooth it out. And I think it's a bigger conversation because it's like, well, how do you smooth out the dues? If these were the Holy Grail numbers, which we know are not really the Holy Grail numbers because reserve studies are filled with estimates. They're just, you know, the best estimate that reserve study person does when they open up their book and they look and they say, oh yeah, a roof that's blah, blah, blah. Yep, it's this amount of money. I mean, and that book is somewhat tailored to this region, but not that much different. So all of these numbers have a certain degree of uncertainty around them. I don't know what that number is, but I think, Joe, I think I saw you shaking your head, is that's kind of the nature of this beast. So given that, I understand that we don't want to add assumptions on top of assumptions, but I'm also sensitive to the point of certainly last year, and honest to God, I think we've dampened that because we've taken the new building out, the replacement building out, or we're recommending that to be taken out. Let's put it that way. I don't know that the board is going to want to do that, but that's what it looks like we're recommending, is that, you know, last year people saw this huge increase, you know, this 1 year, and it was like, and the board over and over and over and over again, and the finance committee over and over and over and over again said, that's what the data says, but that's not reality of what any sane finance committee or board would want to do in our community. And boy, did we get killed with that. So I'm kind of going back to Colin saying, you know, shouldn't we have some kind of a plan that says, look, we know that the future boards can change this. We know that future reserve studies might look very different than this when the numbers are all updated or when we get accurate data. But we would not want to, and here is a way that it might look. And that's what I hear Colin saying. And whether or not, you know, at the very least, you may not say you're going to take a loan out, although I would vote with the interest rates as low as they are right now that would be a really smart thing for us to do. But I'd like to see some data around that. But is there a way to take a look at this just to say, yeah, we would, this is baseline, but we would smooth this. And we would say, no, we wouldn't do a $5.92 decrease for roads on an additional assessment. We'd leave that 578 in there and then see what the impact is on 2024. And then do the same thing when we go up to, we wouldn't do an $18.04 decrease in 2025. We'd keep that 842. And now what's the impact going forward from there? So that to me is it looks like then perhaps we smooth that so we get a better sense of it, see what the ultimate is out there, and then how, whether or not we fund this with a loan or a whatever, I don't have this crystal ball to answer that, and nobody else does either. And we don't have we as a finance committee, but even the board has no authority to make those decisions for those future years unless they decide that we're going to do a loan. So that's, to me, what would look like to smooth this out would be just say, no, we're not going to do a decrease. We're going to keep it the same. And then move on to the next one and say what happens. And maybe at some point where there is a decrease, but I don't know. That's my thinking on this.
So you see this as, again, and I think Colin's saying the same, and additional information. We're not changing this. We're providing additional information. And I'm looking at this and I noticed this right away. 2022 shows a 15% increase. We have a bylaw and a board policy that says 7%. So no matter what, we're going to have to address that in some way or another. So the board looking at 2022's budget is going to have to work through that no matter what.
Is this percent change not accurate on this slide? It says 6%. I didn't do the calculations.
Oh, you're looking at the not modified one. So the modified one shows 2022 dues of 166.26. This was the, come on, Colin, you have the email times down.
This is the 327.
Yeah.
Well, maybe I'm on the wrong page. I'm looking at one that's got a 6/17/2020 draft in the upper left-hand corner.
They're
Email
so
came
they're
from
from today. One shows it was just a minor change that Joel made based on 2029 was just calculating a little bit weird, but it's still based completely on the 2019 reserve study as it is. And then there was I guess a separate email that came out, and it's actually an Excel, isn't it?
Yeah, that one's in Excel.
Yeah, which
Yes.
is
So basically, Penny, instead of looking at the modified one, you need to look at the updated one.
Oh, sorry. I'm saying the wrong words.
I mean, it's confusing. Of course, I'm just joking. It's confusing the way that I name the things. But so basically, the one that Karen is looking at, you said 15%, right? So that's
15% in 2022.
Yeah, so that's the modified one based off of putting the component units back into taking the
Okay.
building out, in 2020.
okay. Yep. Right. No, see, I hadn't. Okay, I was looking at
And
the
he's
wrong one.
And he's looking at the actual one that would go to the board, where it
Got it.
shows 6% 2022.
So I just ran some numbers. I guess what I want to see, if I haven't said this already, is if this is the requirement, we put this up. We say dues projection, state required disclosure, baseline reserve study information.
Mhm.
And then below that, we need, so for 2022 to 2024 for SURF additional assessment, we need $1.4 million. And for 2025 through 2027, we have a surplus of $1.6 million. So I would put, and in roads, so then I would make a finance committee recommended due structure to the board, of which they can throw in the garbage or use or modify or whatever. And so it looks like with roads, we come up with a recommend, because we've got an increase of 578, then a decrease of 592, increase of 932, increase of 10. So we could smooth that out and build some reserves so that when it goes negative in 2027 on roads, and then it goes really high in 2028, we could smooth it out really nicely. And on the additional assessment side, I would say we recommend taking a $1.5 million or $2 million line of credit based on low interest rates to fund the additional projects out of SURF for 2022 to 2024, and paying it back out of the additional assessment SURF dues that will be collected from 2025 to 2027. Just be a separate sheet. And this is and then it would be headed dues projection, board recommendation based on current reserve study. And to me, that would make perfect sense. Maybe it would be more confusing to other people, but at a minimum, we'd want to show both. So when someone's looking at this saying, look, they're going to raise our dues by $20 in 2 years, on that next page would show them, what we're actually recommending.
Yeah, I mean, you're just saying, like, for example, once you move beyond 2022 I'll just pick on roads, for roads, then it's 3713 plus 578, and it freezes in place for 2023. Meaning the dues don't go down in 2023. It stays at the combination of 3713 and 578.
Yeah.
Well, and back to Karen's point is that we have another issue with it being at 15%.
I see two choices. One is what Colin is recommending, which I don't have a problem with either. But typically what we end up doing is looking at what we have in capital funds, say for 2022, is not sufficient to handle what the projects we have scheduled for 2022. We basically would push those projects out for future years. That's one way of smoothing this thing out also, because we're not going to get everything. The only way you're going to get this all done is the way Colin says, is doing it alone. But typically what we've done through all these years is we know we don't have enough dues without a dues increase in 2022. So we end up pushing projects forward that are not necessarily have to be done that current year. And that's one way of smoothing it out, also recognizing that we're not going to necessarily increase $13 for dues. We end up having to push some of these projects into future years. And that's baseline. That's part of baseline.
Yeah, and that would smooth it out.
Yes.
Probably the easiest, right there.
But I don't want to start picking. I mean, reality is going to be different from what we're doing, but we're just making the best recommendation we can with the information we have. And then what happens in the future, yeah, of course it's going to be different, but just want to present a plausible proposition.
Well, my problem with the loan, the only problem with the loan is that you're going to take the pay that loan off is coming out of capital. That's the way our existing loan is right now. We pay that loan out of capital.
Well, based on the projection, we'll have the money.
So maybe we can show how we think dues, if I'm hearing everybody, we could show how they could be smoothed out, and then in the explanation of that, say, here are some options of how that could be done, rather than us maybe backing away from saying we recommend the loan, but saying it could be through a loan, it could be through just pushing projects forward based on staff input and board recommendations and finance committee input, and we maybe leave that a little bit more open than making a specific recommendation. Say, this is how we think dues should maybe realistically look based on this data that we have today, and giving some options of how that could be accomplished.
Well, you have three options, Karen. You have one option is to raise the dues, to do a loan, or to push forward those projects that we can't get done that current year. I think those are the three major options that we have.
Yeah, right. You can raise the dues to the limit, and there is a special assessment option out there. Or you push projects, or you're right, you take a loan and you spread those costs out. How are you feeling about that, Colin? If we kind of just explained it as a various options that the board, or are you feeling super sold on the loan idea?
I think ideally we would make our best recommendation, not be a wishy-washy. And, but if we want to be wishy-washy, that's fine too.
Well, I think when we're actually planning for 2022, I would say, yes, we make our best recommendation. Right now, what we're actually approving is 2021. And I'm less comfortable making best recommendations for 2022 and forward than I am 2021. 2021, I'm perfectly fine saying, this is how we think you should proceed. Beyond that, I'm a little less comfortable.
So, there's another question here that you brought up, Karen. If I look at this, and I'm not advocating one way or another, but I'm just looking at the numbers. So this is nothing but the numbers. Is if we were going to smooth this, we would start smoothing next year.
In 2021 or 20, yeah.
I don't think so.
No.
On roads, maybe, I guess. Yeah.
Well, the reason that I say that is because if we, I think it would have to be a combination of the three options that Tony said that we'd actually do going forward from here. Because it could be any of the combinations, and that we push stuff off. We could still do a loan, but we might still have to push things off because of either the cost or whatever. I mean, there's a lot of us, as I said, there's a lot of assumptions in here. But my concern is looking at this says, hey, there's a 15% increase, looking at baseline funding for 2022, and that exceeds what the bylaw was passed. So that's a, any thoughts on that, Joe or Joel?
Take a loan.
I think that we need to make it very clear that we're not talking about this dues for 2021. What we're talking about is projecting forward 2022 and forward. And we can make suggestions, but it will be a different board and a different finance committee probably. And I think that they need to hear what some of the options are, but we can't decide for them.
I don't know. I mean, I've never once said I'm trying to decide what I realize the future board can change whatever they want. I'm just saying, and we're not holding anybody's feet to the fire, but based on what we know now, this is what we would recommend for the next, and then of course, projects are going to get pushed. Of course, we're not going to borrow as much money, but I just think we take the data, we make a recommendation. And if we want to give three options, I guess I just don't understand the benefit of that. The board has to make this board's going to make the decision.
I think if you give them two options, yours and Tony's, I think that kind of let them know, some kind of, that we're not just on one course. So we're looking at all different angles. So I like both options, and it's up to the board to decide. Like you say, we're just recommending it, and here's option one. If you want to go this route, here's option two, this route.
Or the combination of both.
Don't do option three.
No.
You limit to one or two. I'm sure there's going to be in between those two options, there are going to be a combination of both. But two is kind of a good direction for them to kind of choose from. This is our recommendation. One, recommendation, two, and then let them decide and let the community decide which option they want to go with.
It honestly, for me, comes down to what we choose to do and how much that's actually going to cost. Because if we definitely choose that we're going to fix up the barn, and then I think we definitely should do it in 2022. But if that ends up being way more than what we put into this, then I definitely would, a loan option, taking it all out, getting it all done at one time. But if it was a lower cost thing where we could kind of just move some stuff around and flatten it out, I would probably go with that. Maybe, I'm not sure. It kind of just depends on what the total cost is. And again, what we actually decide to do, which, we decided to put these replacement things in there, but we didn't, we still don't know exactly how much that's going to cost and if that's going to be the most cost-effective thing to do is to repair. We don't have all of that information yet. So
I'm trying to avoid us putting out information that's going to be bad communication like last year. That's all. We don't know how much the barn's going to cost. We don't know when we're going to do it. I'd be shocked if we ended up doing it next year anyway. So it's not going to end up being in there, but
yeah,
Let's go back to not having it in there, because if it's not going to be done the next 2 years, then what's the point of us talking about it and spinning the wheel again?
it needs to be done next year. It won't be done next year. That's the difference.
It will
We have
be.
to go off of the information. The information is recommending that we do it next year.
So we are recommending that the barn needs to be done.
Well, that's what the reserve.
No, the reserve study is.
Reserve study, but what is our recommendation? I think that's what I think everyone's going to be asking.
It's not our bailiwick. It's not our.
Ours. It's not our recommendation to make.
The board's got to decide that.
Okay, that's confusing to me, but
We have to follow the state guidelines, which require us to use the reserve study to make our recommendation on our long-term due structure. So that's all we're doing. As far as what projects the board actually decides to take on, that's up to them. So I'm sorry, Trang, you're new. We've been going through this for years, so it can seem confusing. I remember being in your shoes. I apologize if I'm being short.
no, you're not being short. It's just, it's fine. I just don't think we're gonna get anywhere on that. I like the two. I mean, if you can talk about recommendation and whether or not we do the barn or whether we just fix it, it's up to the board and the community side. But right now, I thought we were just gonna go with, if this is what the reserve shows, and based on this is option 1, option 2, and then let the board bring it to the community to decide which option or how they want to deal with the barn. That's what I see it as.
So we've been talking about this for a while and we're mostly focused on 2022 and forward, which is important. And I want to have these conversations. They're important, but we do need to make a budget recommendation to the board. And I think what we have decided is that the budget as is our recommended, or maybe I need to wait for a motion, but I haven't heard any questions or concerns about that. I think I'm hearing that we like this modified or updated version or whatever it is that shows the repair costs rather than the replacement costs for the barn 8 and the maintenance building. And what we're really stuck on here is how to message it and pursuing the idea of maybe showing an alternate calculation of dues that isn't the state requirement, but is what we think makes the most sense. And I don't think that we're going to get to a resolution on that necessarily tonight, but I do think it is important to put something in front of you guys to see. So I guess, Leslie, I'm going to look to you because you've done this a lot of times. What would be your recommendation, or just talk me through to move forward on this so that we can get to the board what the board needs to see, but also respect, all of these comments that are coming up from the finance, because we don't have a meeting again until after the board meets to review the budget, although they also don't decide on it until August, or I think September, in the new calculator. So
I think that we need to take it one step at a time. What we need to do tonight is to make a recommendation to the board for the 2021 budget. And we actually can continue this conversation about moving forward. I mean, that does not have to be done tonight.
Okay.
I think a lot of ideas have been thrown out and a lot of good work. And I think that we really do need to make a second recommendation, maybe in a month or so. But let me just start it off by saying, I move that the Finance Committee recommend the 2021 budget to the board that has been presented by staff.
Second.
Second.
I was first.
Okay,
Okay, all in favor
Aye.
and opposed?
No, I'm serious. I have some of my own recommendations too, so I wanted to talk about that. And
Well, we could,
can we comment on that?
Oh, well, we should have had discussion.
Oh, yeah, sorry. We should have had discussion. So let's,
So there's a motion on the table to accept the budget. So now discussion.
yeah.
Okay. So I'm not going to be a favorite to a lot of people, especially staff, but I've been hearing a lot from the community as far as I know the 3% salary increase, considering there's a lot of people now that are unemployed and are not able to find work. But one of my recommendation is based on what we don't know what next year is going to be like. I'm not asking or I'm recommending that the salary remains the same as 2020. And then I'm also recommending for as far as golf income, not to exceed their 2019, or at least be flat to 2019. Those are my two recommendations based on our two budget finance meetings. So I don't know how this works.
So then if there's other comments, responses, any other?
I will go. I agree with Trang. I don't think there should be wage increase. We're seeing a huge amount of people being unemployed right now. The unemployment rate, which was sent in one of the emails today, said that Whatcom County is now facing like 17.3% increase in unemployment. I got the word today that even the county and the cities experiencing layoffs, furloughs, reduction in force. And I agree with Trang saying that, you know, we should keep payroll flat and maybe see what we can do is as far as, you know, not doing these increases.
Does anybody know how much that would reduce dues?
Well, it's the combination of the two. I was just going to look it up. I think the salary increases are about 50,000, and I was just going to go look up.
This is not in regards to the benefits, because that is out of our control as far as the benefit increase and stuff. This is just for the base salary is what my recommendation is.
Joe or Joel, do you happen to know, or can you find out how much this would reduce the budget?
I'm looking up the salary thing right now.
I think it's actually just a wash. So I think what I remember when talking to Joel or Joe before was that salary increases, the 3% was about a $50,000 increase. And I'm looking at golf revenue and the increase of 2020 over, sorry, 2021 over 2019 is 45,000. So it basically, no?
well, what you're saying is you're reducing income on golf with this recommendation, and you're reducing the expense on the salaries, right? So they net out even, basically.
Well, the salary being flat through all department is because it's pick and choose. If we choose golf because they decided they predict a 10% increase would be unfair to all the other departments. So the reason why I did the projection for golf I still think that's too aggressive, and that, I mean, next year is so unpredictable what, as far as extra income or expenses that people will be spending. So to project it to be the 2019 or at least flat would, I believe, lower all the other expenses as far as that's associated with the income part. But the salary is just a separate recommendation. It's just across the board. And I think it also will show the community that we hear you, we're tightening up too. And these 3% that's been happening every year, I think the one year that everyone is suffering and losing their job, showing that we're there with you. And we're also going to be cutting
Hey,
down.
Trang, I got a question for you. Where do you get that there's been 3% increases every year?
But that's what
Because there hasn't been. We had a mandatory raise in unemployment last year. So there was no raise. So we took $80,000 for raises off the table last year to make the budget work for the staff. And I don't believe there was a raise for the staff the year before either.
Okay, because from the spreadsheet, I thought he said they were always calculating a 3%.
Nope.
Mm-mm.
Not
Definitely
happening.
That's not, yeah.
Okay.
There were the only raises given last year was the mandatory minimum wage, and none of the salaried employees got raises last year. That was taken out of the budget last year. Prior years, I don't know. And real quick, the golf. So if you're basing it off of 2019, so Brian is projecting an increase of 4.9% revenue over 2019.
Right. I say I wanted to go flat to 2019 or as close as we can. But what he's projecting for 2021 is 10% over 2019. Or a little bit, or 8%, 8 point something percent over 2019.
952 minus 907, it's the $45,000 increase.
That's what.
Yeah, I have to trust Brian on this aspect of it. He understands golf. He sees the things that are going on, and I don't want to be. I just hate to see it being. There should be some increase in this budget. I think he has the best knowledge of what he's going to be doing in 2021.
Well, if he does better than what the budget is, then he's going to look like a real hero. So I mean, that's the other way to look at it. But I'm just trying to go into the golf.
It's a 5% increase over 2019.
Yeah.
From 2019 actual was 908. 2021 budget is 952,000. That's a 5% increase over 2 years. And he's been showing, so I mean, $30,000 increase, $50,000 increase, $100,000 increase from 2018 to 2019. How long has he been the director of golf?
10 years.
Yeah, I guess I would trust his expertise. He's been good with his budgets in the past, and he
recognized what the potential problems would be if he was significantly different than what the actual figures would be in 2021.
That's just our recommendation, because that was the only thing income-wise that was sticking out. Everything else was flat. So
if all of our salaried employees didn't receive an increase in 2020 in what was a strong economy, I realize that states and counties are taking cuts, and they're taking big hits to their revenue, and they're forced to do that. So far, we continue to collect our dues. And I certainly understand, being solidified with our homeowners and not being excessive with increases. But because we didn't get an increase for our salaried staff and for this year, I wouldn't recommend. I mean, I'm supportive of the 3% increase for 2020. So, Trang, you asked, I really appreciate how many questions you asked in the budget process. You obviously took a lot of time to go through it, and it's really impressive. And I appreciate you stepping up and making these recommendations, knowing that, or feeling like you weren't gonna be supported. So, I mean, thank you.
So I think one thing I would say, if we do go ahead and recommend to keep the 3% increase, is that this was talked about last time, and it was not an across the board 3% increase that everybody gets. They are merit raises, and forgive me if I'm saying something wrong, Joe or Lisa, step in, but they will be given when it is determined that, it's okay to do so. I guess there's still the chance that they wouldn't. If this year ends up tougher than we thought, and we think next year is going to be harder to meet, that's still something that it's not necessarily a given, like a mandatory minimum wage increase was. We had to do it regardless. And this is built in a little bit of flexibility still with that. That being said, I do very much support keeping our staff. They do an excellent job, and I've just been through it. I've seen it be more expensive to replace than to keep staff. So that's always my concern when we look to making payroll cuts in order to save money. It often doesn't end up in an overall savings.
I was just looking up the cost of living for 2019. It was 2.8%. We're looking at another 1.6 for this year. And if they didn't receive anything last year, we're looking at 3.5%, 4%.
My only issue with the cost of living is the term that we're using, cost of living. If we're talking about the cost of living, then everybody should get the same raise as a cost of living. If this is a merit increase, we should notate that as a merit increase and not a cost of living increase. In my mind, when you say cost of living, everybody's going to get the same percentage raise versus this is a merit raise.
That's a good distinction. Thanks, Tony. This is a tough one. I mean, because it's like, I can appreciate you bringing that up relative to, what the community kind of reaction will be for people potentially getting a 3% merit increase. It's also expensive to replace people. So do we have any turnover numbers? Lisa?
We've had typically a very low rate of turnover, but just during this COVID, we've lost 2 employees in our front office. And we've had to lay off all of our rec staff except the managers. So those people will hopefully be able to be brought back if we are able to open the rec center. So hopefully that's not a replacement and a retraining and all those things that incur costs.
Yeah, because we don't know when we bring them back, whether or not they're going to be available, right?
We also lost a golf course employee.
So my thing about the salary being flat or the cost of living, I agree with Tony. I don't like the term cost of living as well, because it does give me that impression that it is a 3% across the board. But besides the benefits, because when I'm an employee and I've been managing a lot in my previous profession, it's not just the salary that draws and makes the employer or employee want to stay. It's the benefits that's included with it. And I think from what I understand, we have really good medical benefits now for all our employees. So it's not just that. And of course, it's the people you work with and the manager. So it's not just the salary that determines if a person is going to leave or not. It's the whole package. And I think, from what I understand, it's a pretty good competitive package as far as I know. It's new and recently, but it's not just going to be that 3% that's going to say, hey, you're going to give me the promote of 3%, I'm going to leave. Not in this environment, they're not. If they found that they're under good management, with a good environment, with good benefits for their family, then that's what's going to keep them with the company or with Sun Valley versus leaving it because they didn't get a 3% recognition this year. But again, it's not a popular situation and I don't want to lose anyone over it, but that was just something I feel like I needed to express, and I did.
Lisa,
said
will
that-
you, Lisa, will you chime in about the benefits that Trang is talking about?
Sure, and I agree with you, Trang, that we do everything that we can to make up for the things that we can't afford to do for our employees, right? You know, just special things we do or create the benefits package. I'll explain that in a minute, just to make sure that they know that they're valued. And with our benefits, we have a very low-end medical plan. We go out to market every year and we come up with the most economical plan that we can find. And medical and dental are included together, but those are the only benefits that are paid for. And as I said, they're not really, it's wonderful to have them. So I'm not complaining or by any means saying that we should go out and get this giant rich package, but it is minimal. It's, but we've also been able to pull in a whole lot of voluntary benefits, which means we don't pay for them. Sudden Valley doesn't pay for any of them, but we're able to offer employees short-term disability, long-term disability, vision, life insurance, cancer care, critical illness, all those things, but they pay the whole cost for them. But it does look like a really great package because there's a lot of options, but only the medical gets paid for. So I don't know if that's what you wanted, Joe.
Well, and it's not the full family, it's only the employee. So the family has to pay as well.
What about retirement? How's the retirement plan?
We just ended up getting a 401k started again that was taken from the staff many years ago, and it is not funded by Sudden Valley, it is funded by ourselves.
There's no there's no match to the 401k?
No,
Nope.
I've been trying the whole time I've been here to find a 401k plan that didn't require Sudden Valley to match, because that's what happened previously. Normally you have to match in order when you implement a retirement program. And that year was before I got here, it was decided to cut that expense. And so everyone had to cash out their 401ks. So I have been able to locate a plan through Saturna Capital. They're local and they were not required to match. We do have the ability if some year it's an amazing year and they want to fund a certain percentage of matching, we have that option, but we're not required to. And the expense is very, very minimal.
So Sudden Valley pays the only employee benefit that Sudden Valley pays for is the health insurance premium for the employee.
That's it.
Nothing for dependents.
Yep. And all of the other benefits are voluntary and they're employee paid. And same with the 401k, that's new this year. We just implemented it and it does not, Sudden Valley does not contribute to that cost at all.
Lisa, does the current prior employees, were any of the reasons they left because of salary?
I don't know the answer to that.
We've lost a couple since I've been here. There's been one person who left for salary reasons. Yes.
And you know, we're always thrilled when our staff members find better opportunities for career development or just something better for their lives and their families. But people aren't just streaming out the door, and there haven't been in years. I mean, there have been a couple times, but like there's been years in a row where there haven't been, and we've managed to keep our staff. And I'm not offering an opinion either way about your decision to add or leave off that 3%, but I wanted to back up Karen in saying that just because that's in the budget does not mean it will get spent. If the economy continues to turn the way it is, there's just no way that that's going to happen. But it is, you know, to be optimistic, having that ability to level salaries, you know, would be great. But like Karen said, that does not mean it's going to get spent.
Hey, Lisa, sorry if I'm jumping in over anyone. Last time you spoke about that benchmark study that you guys did with salaries. Now, remind me again about how ours compare to, I guess, out in the market. Like, where are we at with that?
It's kind of all over the map. But we definitely came closer the year before last in getting people kind of up to where they should be. But there's no one in the organization that is getting paid more than 50 percentile of the their pay scale.
So 50% would be just average, just the mid or median or whatever, just the middle. Okay, so if you were at a higher, then you're getting
At the
paid.
high end of their pay scale.
Okay,
It's a good
thank
thing.
you. That-
There's room to grow.
And what's the low end? I mean, are we talking 10 percentile or 25? So
Yeah,
most are between 25 and 50.
Right. And we've had people for years that are like 48% below market. I mean, there's been some, it's been some challenging adjustments over the years, but nothing dramatic has been done except, you know.
Okay. So is there more discussion on this, or do we want to have the vote again in the timing that we should have had it, which was after discussion?
Call the question.
Call the question. Okay. I didn't write down the motion. Shoot. So all in favor of approving the 2021. Oh, Penny.
I have another question. I appreciate Trang's concern about salary, but I also have a concern about the collection rate. It seems high to me, given where we are right now.
I was curious about that too. What, like, how do I say this? What, have we had any community members or owners have expressed to either admin or whatever, as far as, now we're in 2 months into the dues, when the dues are due. Have they expressed any concerns or trouble possibly completing more of their monthly dues? I haven't heard much about that, so.
Joe or Joel, can you answer that?
I haven't had anything come into my office requesting anything. Generally, all those questions would go to Joel, but I do believe, I mean, we do have payment plan options. So if somebody does get in a hardship, we can do that. We also waived all interest payments until August. So there's really no press for anybody to pay because there's no penalties. But Joel would have a better handle on that. But personally, no one has come into me and asked anything of that for me.
That would have gone to the collections person that we have, and I don't know if the number of payment plans has increased in the last month or so.
There's no new payment plans. That's something that we track, and the number of members that aren't honoring the payment plans that they have, but there haven't been any new ones in the last couple months.
Okay.
And I myself have not heard any chatter out there in terms of like from accounts receivable or from Angie, the collection specialist, about it, people talking about not being able to pay dues. Not that that wouldn't be the case, but it's just nothing that has, you know, like come to my attention at this point.
This was something that we did discuss earlier too, and said that if we find that 95% is unrealistic, we can change that number all the way up to August.
Right. Right.
Lori,
I
did
just-
you have?
Yeah, I just had a question. What has been the average in the last, year and a half on the collection rates? Has it been right up there at that 95%?
It's been over 97%.
Okay, I'm not sure how we're going to answer that question, but I appreciate Leslie saying, this budget isn't finalized and we'll have more data for June and July.
Yeah.
Before the budget's finalized. I just, I hate putting more work on, and we can still make this recommendation to, tonight as to what we believe. But I would recommend to the staff that you take a look at what the implications would be if it was at 93% versus 95%.
I think I asked this question of Joe and Joel. What happens if we collect at 93%? What would we do? And I don't remember the specific response, but I had the confidence that if we needed to, we could make the adjustments if things weren't tracking early in the year to, not come in with a deficit.
Yeah,
So
I mean, we will know, within the first quarter, we'll know if things are going to be tracking good or to plan. And if they're not, then we make the adjustments that we need to make for them at that point.
Okay.
I think that if I'm calculating this right, based on what Joel and I were talking about as far as, 1% per month equals this amount, I think if we came in 2% lower, it would be about $52,000 for operations for 2021.
Yeah, sounds right.
I think. So that's
Yeah,
based on.
The other thing that we have done a lot in the past, when we had the requirement that in order for dues to pass, it would take 60% to be in favor of, and so we would present the budget, and it would frequently fail, and then that meant that the budget itself, although it passed, we couldn't fund it. So you went ahead and you did the spending plan. So that's also another option, is when we come to the beginning of the year, if things are really still in bad shape, the board can create a spending plan.
Okay.
It's a good question, Penny. It's fair.
Yeah. Call the question.
Okay, do I need to state again? All those in favor of approving the 2021 budget as presented by staff, say aye.
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 Right.
And all opposed? Is that unanimous? Did I miss something? Okay, got it.
Yeah.
Oh, were you opposed?
No, I was saying, do you want us to hold our hands up?
Oh, yeah, sorry. It's hard to look at a bunch of at once. Okay, thank you guys so much for.
I think when we present it to the board, that we need to also include concerns.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, I absolutely agree.
As
Thank you
well
for
as
that.
information regarding what Lisa mentioned. I found that very useful for me as far as, the salary 3% increase. I think as much information about that and what the employees get as far as benefits will help them make a more rounded or make a good decision.
I think you're right. I think we need to be better about communicating that. Sorry, Lisa, go ahead.
No, it's okay. I didn't mean to interrupt. If I could just offer just a little bit of encouragement. I just got this from Norm. The unemployment rate on May 22nd, there were 1.4 thousand people in Whatcom County on unemployment. The 29th, there were 59, and the 5th of June down to 801. So the unemployment rate is dropping as we get into phase 2. So that's just for your information.
Good, thank you, Lisa. Okay, next we are going to move on to new business, which is the hiring and spending freeze discussion that was presented to the board originally, and then it was postponed since it's financial related to get some, or to review it with the finance committee. So it's a couple pages long. And then we sent out kind of just some supplemental information. I asked you all for questions that you had. What kind of information would you need in order to kind of assess this? And then Joel sent out today the PowerPoint, which can't remember what time that came out, which just had some data points. Some of this was.
I was unable to open that.
Oh, shoot. Okay. Well,
I do not have Office, and so sometimes those things will not open with the software that I have.
Penny, do you want me to convert it to PDF and email it to you now?
Sure, thank you, Jamie.
Aren't we able to actually project it here while we're in the meeting? Again, I was at an earlier meeting today when they were bringing up documents and things that we, could all see.
we can. Joel, do you know how to share? Because you've got it. So do you know how to share?
I don't know how to do it
Oh, I
myself,
suppose.
but I know it's possible.
Yeah, you
Although
can share screen, so.
There we
Colin
go.
did it. There you
Thank
go. In
you.
fact, we all had it. I wasn't even thinking that. I was thinking Joel had the original, but we all have it. Okay.
Right.
Colin, are you in charge now? So I need you to go to the first.
Oh, no,
slide.
he just took it off.
I don't want to be in charge.
Come on.
All right.
No, you're not in charge. You can just walk us through the side. Look, you were so snappy with that. Let's just, you can do this. You're not in charge. I'll walk, you just put up the slide. Could you please?
You not see it?
Huh?
Oh, I thought you had it. Okay.
I forgot how I did it.
There we go. Okay. So we were just kind of talking through where we are. So year to date, I should let Joel talk about this, but what our year to date losses, what our collections are, and this just includes a variety of data that was asked for by committee members that seemed relevant to the conversation. I guess I'm not quite sure the best way to go through this.
Joel, if you're going to talk about it, do you want to just take this and do you want to share it?
Yeah, I'll run through it.
Here, you know how to just go click the share screen on the bottom and double click, open the item, open the PowerPoint, and then click share screen and then
Yeah,
select.
you can all see this?
Nope.
Not yet.
Nope.
You gotta select it.
Okay,
You
yeah.
can do it. I know you can.
So here, do you have the slideshow open?
Yeah.
Okay, can I
No.
put it in for just a second?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Here we go.
So I'll just quickly run through these slides here. So now, of course, this comes straight out of the financial statements, the April 30 net loss, 52,725. That's the operating net loss, operating income net loss. So cumulative 2020 collection rate as of May 31, 93.7%. You remember I told you that as of April 30 on the financial statements, it's 95%. And you can see right here, this is the historical. This is basically the same chart that you see on the manager's report that Joe goes over during the board meetings. And this is giving you a breakdown month by month of what you're looking at by collection rate. Historically, you can see that January is our worst month. And then it picks up. Obviously, May was real close to 90% for May. So it did drop during May, which obviously reduced that 95% to 93.7% cumulatively for the year. Now, at this point, of course, in May, we're not charging late fees or interest. So now we're probably starting to see like the first kind of results of maybe difficulties in payment or just putting off payment for now. Okay, so monthly budget operation dues at 92% collection as it stands, 168,711. Rec special assessment at 92%, 30,635. So that comes out to, real close to $200,000 is what we're taking in. And so that's what we lost, that's what we gave up in April for dues revenues. Now, potential loss revenue, every 1% drop in collections results in $2,167 per month. So if you lost 5% in a month, and it'd be 5 times that, times by however many months are left in the year, if you wanted to do like a rough calculation. I talked to Brian in terms of like the year-to-date golf revenue through May 2020, and that is $350,418, which is approximately 9% below budget. Brian feels weather, weather related, of course, there's a possibility maybe he could pull even at the end of the year with his golf revenue numbers into the second section, the year-end projection. So right now, as it stands, there's a year-end forecasted net loss of 237,709. So how I did this was a little more of a conservative method I took. So I started out with the April net loss, 52,725. Then I looked at what we had left May through December, and I just factored in all the expenses, just all the remaining expenses to budget. I just factored them all in as though we're going to take all those expenses and then remaining revenues. And that was also done at a 92% collection rate. And this does not include any sort of benefits that we can receive from the PPP funds of approximately 358,000. So that 358,000 can offset. So that could work its way into the income statement in the year as more income, essentially offsetting this loss right here, this 237,709. And this 237,709, as you see, is falling in line with the fact that we gave up about $200,000 in dues revenue. And the way that I calculated the expenses was more conservative, meaning it was more aggressive in terms of assuming whatever expenses were still budgeted, we're just going to absorb them all. And that might not be the case, though, going on throughout the year. Payroll hiring, only the recreation employees are currently furloughed, as Lisa pointed out. There's just the management over there at the rec center, Maddie, and over there at Marina as well. Those are the only two going at this point until the rec center opens up. No new planned positions through 2021. So in the budget, there's no new planned positions to add in 2021. And of course, I already talked about the PPP of the 357,000 that can offset this loss right here that we have projected right now.
Can I ask a question real quick?
Oh, sure.
How many, this might be a question for Lisa. How many rec employees do we have that are furloughed? What I recall is that we had maybe a couple people that would come in and work part-time. Like, is it even one FTE equivalent, or?
There
How
are
many?
5 part-time positions that are furloughed right now. I don't know exactly what the FTE on that is. I can look at the chart that is also in the manager's report.
Okay, I'll look at it. I can find it. Okay, thanks.
Joe, on the PPP, can we use those funds as part of salary increases?
Ostensibly, yes, because those salary increases, of course, would just work its way into normal salary expense, which would show up on our quarterly 941 reports that we would send into the bank that they would use. And so, yes.
But the PPE or the PPP is to be, has to be used by the end of this year, correct?
Yeah, it does.
And help me, I don't have this off the top of my head. Not that 357, Colin, you may know too more about this, but that 357 does not have to be used only for payroll, correct?
For us, basically the two components that could apply to us is payroll and utilities. But now, Tony, were you talking about salary increases for this year or next year? I mean, so the PPP only relates to this year right now.
So it only relates to utilities and payroll?
For us, yes. I mean, there are a couple other components that it could relate to, but it really doesn't apply to us.
So the $237,000 that you have net loss, how does that relate to payroll or utilities?
Well, meaning like basically once we like absorb all the payroll and utilities and all costs into the GL at the end of the year, not just totally ignoring this 357,000 right here, we would have, projected net loss of approximately 237,000. So this 357,000, if it becomes forgivable, then that winds its way into the income statement literally as more income, which then offsets that it would offset that possible loss.
I'm sure we'd be able to have, it would all convert to a grant based on what I know. So basically.
Yes, it would
Yeah.
all, I mean, as long as we keep using it the way it's supposed to be used, it will be a grant. And if we don't use it all, it goes back at the end of the year and there's no penalties or interest or any loan payments.
I mean, because these funds came into our bank around May 15th, and we have now with the new legislation, 24 weeks to, for payroll, you know, and utilities to apply to this.
Right. So what is the projected, what's our projected payroll for the rest of the year? Are we going to use all that 357?
Well,
Payroll and utilities?
yeah, because like that 357,700 number, that's how they calculated that for the PPP stuff is that's basically your average payroll for 1 month in 2019 times by 2.5.
Yes, we'll use it all. It will all be forgiven. Our best projection right now is a surplus, it looks like, of $120,000.
Yeah. Once this is forgiven.
So is that on here somehow? Is that in here in another page, what you just said?
No, actually, the reason why I left it down, there's a separate line just to keep this conservative. So I just said the above forecast net loss does not include, you know, this 357,700.
Okay.
This is technically called a loan. It is a loan that does not have to be paid back if it is spent on the approved areas by the end of the year.
Yeah. That's
And
correct.
I think that we've been looking for grant money for years, and this really behaves like grant money if we deal with it correctly.
So I have another question about the categories. I thought there was, and I probably misread it or misinterpreted something that I read or heard. I thought there was a category that might apply for interest on loans.
Well, yeah, but they were talking about like mortgages. And we don't have like those types of things. So that wouldn't really apply to us.
Okay. So it's not just any loan debt. It's just
Right.
mortgage debt.
Yeah.
Okay.
So that's what, yeah, that's why like what I meant in terms of like the two categories that really realistically apply to us would be payroll or utilities.
Got it. Okay. Thank you.
Yeah.
So we're going to use all this 357.7.
Maybe not.
Why not?
Why not?
Why would you want to be a hog?
Be a hog?
Pigs get fed, hogs get slaughtered. You just, if we don't need it all, why would we want to use it all?
Well,
Someone else might be able to use it, Colin.
When are we going to know? We won't know. We don't know what the rest of the year is going to be like.
Right.
Yeah, I
So-
mean, realistically, we should be able to use it all. And with our pay, we're going to have payroll expenses more than that, so, and utilities.
If we didn't use it all and then we get to the last 2 months of the year and we gave money back and then, you know, we end up not being a pig, it just doesn't seem like the smart thing to do. And it's not taking money away from anywhere else because they approve more money. There's more money available than what has been applied for. So,
So,
whatever, you know.
yeah. And the other thing that seems appropriate here is that, you know, we don't know what the impact is going to be on our collections rate. I mean, we're assuming the 92%, which is a conservative, as you said, Joel, conservative, given the fact that we are currently year to date at 95%. But if our collection rate went to 90%, like it was, you know, for May, if that's where we consistently went at 90%, then Joe, no L at the end, it would seem that we would want to use this for payroll because it would be most likely our collection rate would go down as a direct result of COVID. And so therefore, that's what this was meant to do, was to help us offset anything that we were being impacted by direct from COVID. So I appreciate what you said. Let's not be greedy. I think is another way for you to say what you said, but there may be a very good reason for us to use this.
The main point of this is that based on our best information right now, we're projecting a surplus and how that relates to the spending resolution. So we can talk about the PPP refund later in the year, but so I just want to keep this going.
What else
Yeah.
is in this presentation that we need to look at?
Oh, the rest is really fast. It's just all this is doing is it's just basically which we've already talked about kind of in a nutshell. So this is just showing you SURF, the projected year-end balance 787,052 that comes right off of the April cash statement sheet that you see, the SURF amount. And this is showing you the board approved projects, which comes off those capital reporting project sheets in the finance committee package. Just meaning like, here's the stuff approved in 2020 is what's in there. So that relates to 2020. And then right here, the 2020 prioritized projects. So this is what we're looking at as important stuff to do in 2020 that has not already been approved and sitting on the capital reporting spreadsheet.
So basically the takeaway from this one is based on what we have already approved and the cash projection with that. And if we were to approve everything that's been prioritized for the rest of 2020, I just did the math real quick. The ending cash balance would be 544,000 to carry over to next year, in addition to the required $600,000 carryover. Am I saying that right, Joel?
Yeah, yeah. And down below too, so basically I'm telling you, every 1% drop in the collection rate for SURF results in $1,136 per month lost. You know, that won't be going into SURF.
And our drop is versus 92% collection.
Yeah. Now the reason why I use 92% is because that's the budgeted amount.
That's the budget. Yeah.
Yeah.
I just want to make sure that I got this right because we're
Right. Yes.
yeah. Okay. 92%.
Or you can, or anything over 92%, then you gain 1,136. So if we stay at 93.7%, then we're gaining that throughout the year.
So Karen, I think I missed what you summarized. I think I was busy looking at the page and I wasn't really listening.
Actually, another thing too, Penny, so like on that cash projection, on that cash spreadsheet, you know, for SURF and stuff like that you see in the financial statements, the projected revenue coming in is only set at the 92% level. So if we have anything over 92%, then that's extra money that sheet is not currently showing, you know, for the rest of the year.
So just what I was saying was that, and I didn't have Joel put the calculations on here because there are still, like you said, if collections is higher or lower, it changes this number. But based on 92% collections, if we did all of these projects that are listed under 2020 prioritized projects, so if we approved those and we did those, our cash balance at the end of the year would still be 544,000 above the required $600,000 carryover.
Oh, okay. Thank you.
Yeah, this part right here, I mean, I could literally almost do that and you really don't need to see it. It's just because those are already built into this number right here. So it's just this almost minus what none of this stuff has been approved yet through the board.
Okay. Perfect. Okay.
So this is literally just informational in a sense. Now the roads project, same exact pattern with this. The only thing approved right now in 2020 is just that CVC culvert stuff. And the next slide it's too long to show on this one. The next slide we'll get into the approved project or that stuff that hasn't been approved yet. But potential lost revenue for roads, every 1% drop or increase or rise, $1,168 per month. Lost for gain revenue, think about them like that. And then here are the projects, prioritized projects for 2020 that have not come before the board.
How is this slide different than the one before that was 240 something?
Which slide?
Roads.
This one? Oh, the only difference is you see this prioritized project?
Oh, surf versus road. Sorry. Never mind. That was a dumb question.
So you could say the 1 point, this number right here minus this number, would give you, which I'm sure
I know.
Karen's already done.
I'm doing it. 860.
Do we have
So-
do we have a minimum requirement for roads? I don't remember.
I think it's, I could flip to, I want to say it's 500,000.
Yeah, I think it's right. I think
It
it's
is
right.
500,000.
Yeah.
What are we trying to prove?
600 for surf and 500 for
Yeah.
roads. Is that right?
Yes, 500 for roads.
Okay, thank you.
But what are we learning from all of this?
Where our cash, what our cash balances
What-
are based on are projected to be based on what is currently in the pipeline.
But it's not any different from what we've knew before, right? I mean, we knew the projects, we knew what was approved, we've known what's coming, and we knew, we know we have enough cash, right?
Yeah, I just don't know that everyone has seen it before, like you, Colin. You've been around for a while, so you're pretty familiar with what the projects are. So not everyone is quite there yet.
Got it. Fair point. I'll stand down. Good point.
No.
Tie it to the resolution that was presented where it might restrict some spending, which may involve these projects. Is that what I'm getting at, Karen, or?
Yeah, so, roads themselves weren't specifically named, but it did say capital. I don't know if we've had one come through since you and Lori have been on, but the process already is that if staff wants a capital or roads project approved, they first bring it to the finance committee with their 3 bids and various information. If we approve it, it is then recommended to the board for them to look at and approve or reject, at the board level. And it's only then that projects actually get funded. So just to kind of clarify that process. So
Joe and Joel, what's your bottom line relative to, and this may be an unfair question to you guys, but if I look at this resolution, well, let me ask you a question first. Do you have any open positions right now?
Not off the top of my head. Lisa would have a better handle on that one.
We're fully staffed. We have one position that's opening in turf care for a full-time regular person, but they will promote from within for that. They're not going to be an additional person.
And will they need to backfill the person?
No, because it's seasonal.
Okay.
Not the full-time position. The full-time is round year round. Sorry, that didn't come out well. They will backfill the position with a seasonal worker. So there won't be an additional full-time person.
I see.
The
Okay.
concern obviously would be if, well, amongst other things, if someone were to quit in a month, staff would have to make the case to the board of directors to replace that person.
Yes.
Yeah, and
I think staff are staff because, they know what work needs to be done. And I mean, Jamie is just leaving. Like, I know enough to know if Jamie left in a month and we didn't know and we couldn't replace her, that is a serious problem.
Yeah.
If Lisa quits in 6 weeks, now the board could then give approval to hire her, but doesn't seem like we're in a position to need the board to run the association right now. So we've already established we have enough cash. We're projecting a surplus at the end of the year. There's no data that shows that we need to take this step right now.
I mentioned, if I may, at the board meeting on Monday that we were already on this. If we lose staff due to attrition, every position will be evaluated to see if the workload can be balanced, and so that we can do without this person for a while, or if it's a critical position that needs to be filled immediately. And that's only if things get worse, because right now there's no one that doesn't have enough to do. That's for sure.
And as far as spending goes, the minute this started back in March, I sat down with all the managers and said, spend only what is truly needed for the health, safety, welfare of the community. Don't go crazy and spend just because you have it in your line item. True needs only, no wants, just true needs.
See, and that's the interesting thing for me about this is I'm really surprised that this resolution came forward and came forward at the last minute, and we didn't get asked to look at it too to see, or that they didn't have any supporting data like we've just been trying to go through here, because I don't see the need, and maybe you just said it, Colin, I just don't see the need to put restrictions on staff when staff, I mean, we've got seasoned people. Joe is a seasoned operations leader that knows how to manage budgets. And the fact that you took that proactive, step early on was the wise thing and smart thing to do. And so I'm surprised that the board didn't recognize that and acknowledge that. And I don't understand what the purpose of this is. And we're all learning in this. And at this point in time, the data that we have, and to summarize again, we've got some relief from the government, from PPP for salary. You've been managing on a reduced spending perspective as far as the staff is concerned. We currently are at a rate that is above our budget rate. And if we go down at all in that, then there's opportunities in capital actually, we'd still have over the minimum cash at the end of the year in our capital accounts, SURF and roads. So am I missing something here, Joel or Joe? Joe, help me here.
I think you're about right.
I don't get the point here. So
I'm in agreement with both Penny and Colin, and not just for salaries, but for capital projects. We have the funds available. These projects won't go away. If you stop them now, they end up being delayed to a future time. Utilize the funds that we have in a well-meaning way, and that the best way of doing that is having Joe being responsible for that, not the board.
So do we need to make a motion?
I was just wondering the same thing. Do we want an official recommendation, or is this something for Leslie and my edification as we go and talk with this at the board? I did just want to maybe restate something that Colin said. Colin, you said we're projecting a surplus, and I don't know that I would put it quite in those terms. I would say that we have sufficient funds available for our use from PPP to cover our projected losses at this time. I guess I'm just being a little cautious about saying we're projecting a surplus at this point, but I think we mean the same thing. I'm just kind of looking at semantics here.
You chose better words. Good job.
Okay.
Get rid of that.
Is there anybody who's got some concerns about this?
Trang, what were you saying?
I was wondering if we can get rid of that share screen so I can.
Oh,
I can't see anything. I got a blank screen.
take it down, Joel. We're done. Great job.
that me?
Lisa's running to the rescue. There we go.
Here we go.
Oh.
I think, I mean, as far as what you can present to the board, I don't know if it's something that we as a financial committee can recommend to you. It sounds like it's something that was brought up by a board member. So it's going to have to be approved or voted on by the board. I agree with everything you guys say. I don't really think this resolution does anything different than what is already currently being done. I mean, even in April, which is 1 month, I mean, you can already see that the expenses are much better than budget. I mean, just seeing that overall and over the next few months, as far as, expenses, I think that speaks more than, the resolution. I agree. I just don't think it's needed, but if we need to recommend something to the board, I don't know if that's something, like you say, we need to do.
I'm completely comfortable, Karen, with you and Leslie, that's where you are on my screens, just conveying our thoughts to the board. I mean, it's pretty simple. If it's more effective for us to have a motion that just says we recommend not adopting this proposed resolution, especially if it was unanimous, if that was helpful, we can do that. But
I don't know about actually bringing forward a motion from the Finance Committee, but I would like to bring to the board the PowerPoint that we have seen with an explanation of the finances and what seems to be an opinion from the Finance Committee that we believe that we don't have any real financial issues right now, and that we have been taking the steps already that are needed in order to control our expenses. And if things change in the future, we can change.
okay, I just want to do whatever is most effective. So it's more effective to not have a resolution. No problem.
So
Not have a motion. Yeah.
yeah, so Leslie said it pretty well, but to summarize what we are saying, make sure I'm capturing all this. The Finance Committee believes that our current financial status is such that we don't see the need for this resolution to be enacted at this time. And we are comfortable with the way staff has been managing thus far, and we support them continuing to do as they have been doing. Am I capturing it well? Can someone say it more eloquently that they, I'm just kind of trying to make sure I have all the main points.
We're comfortable and confident in staff to make the decisions that they need to make at all levels. I am. And there's no data that we can see that would lead us to believe that we need to adopt a resolution like this.
Well said.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay.
Does anybody else have any input that they haven't provided yet? Thank you.
Okay. I'm writing fast and furiously because I like the way that you just said it, Colin. It was better than me. Okay. So if I'm hearing correctly, we will take this PowerPoint then to the board. I'll send it, I suppose, to the president to be added to the agenda, and we will move forward with this opinion from the Finance Committee that Colin just said it, and that will be just part of the discussion at the board level.
As well as from Joel and Lisa. I mean, staff needs to be, input needs to be important to be put into it as well. Not just our committee.
Yeah, they typically attend the board meetings as well, so they're able to comment there. So yes, agreed. Thanks. So is that it? Is there anything else that anyone feels is unresolved? Or can we adjourn this thing?
I
Yeah,
think we need
property
to have
comments.
member comments.
Property, oh shoot, I'm sorry. Real quick, I just want to thank you guys again. I'm all about the thank yous, but this was a lot of information that was sent out very late, and thanks for your flexibility kind of working with us and being willing to get up to speed quickly with various technology issues and whatever. But I appreciate all of your comments and all of the time that I know you guys put in behind the scenes to get up to speed and to really look into this stuff. So thank you very much. Okay, property comments, sorry.
Karen, I'm going to sign off.
Okay, yes. Bye,
All right.
Penny. Thank you.
Thank you. Good night, all.
Good night.
So if any of our attendees would like to add their comments, there is a raise your hand feature in Zoom, usually located towards the bottom of the app. You can just tap that, raise your hand, and we can bring you into the conversation. And looks like no hands raised tonight.
Okay,
Wow.
so now
I move it re-adjourn.
Okay.
we have Leslie's a second. Okay, all in favor?
Yes.
All right. Thank you guys so much. Have a great weekend and the rest of
Thank
your
you.
week.
Thanks,
Talk to
guys.
you
Great week.
later.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye.
Bye.